So guys, today is question day. I know I posted up a question the other day on our Facebook page. You guys have any questions for us, just ask and we'll try to answer some of them. And got the laptop, so let's go to it. And let's see. Hugo would like to know more about our line setup. He says, I know you go from braid to fluorocarbon or mono, but would you recommend with reel or any other types of lures? For that, it's still going to depend on what type of lure and type of fish you're fishing for. Basically, you just want to, like normally, what would you do? That's probably a good somewhere to start. If you're going for white bass, or so say white bass for example, say you normally fish on 6 or 8 pound tests, or even 10. What I'll do is I'll usually keep that. I'll usually still stick to a braid that's 10 pound tests, and then I'll go to a fluorocarbon that's 10 pound tests. Or sometimes I'll step up to the next size up, like a 10 pound braid and a 12 pound mono. Something like that. You know, you kind of experiment a little bit, but that's what we've gotten. So that would be your white bass example. For a striper, it'll be like, for example, if you're looking at our Sooner Lake videos, we're on either 30 pound mono or bigger on the top waters, and for the braid, we like the 20 and the 30 pound braid, and we tie it to I do the Alberto knot hybrid, and 47 they do the GT knot. Look those up on the internet if you don't know what I'm talking about when I reference those knots. Anthony Moore says, have you guys ever considered making or designing your own fishing lures? Yeah, we have. Actually, we have 3 designs in mind right now. Can't really tell you guys what those are yet. Still looking at the mold process on how to make a mold, how to do these things. But the only thing I can really tell you is we're looking at 2 topwater lures, and we're looking at a glide bait. So I know that's saying a lot, but that's what we're thinking of, and you guys will see that once those come out. The only thing I can tell you is it'll have something. It'll have a lot of the qualities that we really like in a topwater, and you guys have already seen the topwater lures we like, because every single topwater lure we like, we've already reviewed. And let's just say it's going to have, I guess a little secret I give away is it's going to have a user, it'll allow the user to pick the weight of the lure, okay, so, or adjust the weight of the lure, put it that way. Any thoughts of a DD bass fishing? That's from Mr. Her J. Shone. Yeah, actually, we do. We've actually had a couple of trips where we try to go out and catch them, but we usually fail when that happens. The other thing is our lakes down here, our average isn't like a lot of, I'm assuming he's talking about California lakes. Our average largemouth or smallmouth, they're not that big. So like a trophy down here would probably be like an 8 pounder. I mean, there are a couple lakes, like spotty lakes, that'll have an average that's a lot bigger. But for the most part, those lakes are kind of far away. At least an hour and a half drive, 2 hours away, so you usually don't chase those very much. We have like 5 or 6 lakes right around us that has a good population of fish or fishing, and we usually don't venture out to those lakes. But if we actually get out to those lakes, yeah, we do try to go for them. We've looked at it. We've purchased many glide baits, many boot tail, swimming tail. I have 2 rods up there that are dedicated for big game fishing, you could say. So yeah, if we ever get a successful trip with at least 1 double digit and say a couple of 5 or 6 pounders, then yeah, you'll see that. But yep, we've thought about it. We haven't really, you can say, the mindset hasn't completely swung from quantities to just quality, you know. So we're working on that. This is from Brad Frizzle. I'm sorry I can't pronounce your name right, but what's your preferred rod and reel combo from fishing from shore for stripers, and why? That's gonna basically, in our opinion, spinning reels and spinning outfits, because if you're fishing from shore for stripers, more than likely you're gonna have a lot of people fishing with you, and sometimes you're fishing current, so backlashes and things like that'll make people hate you. So try to stick away from that. But once again, like I said, that's just personal experience. It all boils down to the size of stripers you're fishing for, and yeah, size of stripers, and if there's any current. Because if there's current, you have to up your game a little bit. But more than likely, if you're talking, say, stripers that are 20 inches and less, a 7-foot or a 7.5-foot medium heavy, paired with 10 to 15 pound braid, and your choice of lure, something that can do that. The other thing is, if you're bouncing or drifting, say bucktails, things like that, you might want to step it up even a little bit more, maybe 8.5, 20 pound braid. Now, if you know you're going to be catching stripers that are 30 plus inches, yeah, you should really step that up to a surf rod. Surf rod, some of the reels we've already reviewed, are really good, and that's when you step up to a surf rod, I'm assuming you're trying to cast really far, so you're going to go with the long cast setups. Talking, I would say minimum 10'6", that can throw at minimum 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce really comfortably. The reel is going to be really important as well. That's when you kind of step into the world of you kind of want to cast farther than anybody else, or at least have the capability to cast farther than anybody else. So a reel that comes to mind right off the bat is the Shimano's and the Daiwas. They seem to be the only two brands that really see that world of fishing, the long cast world. So for the Daiwas, it's your wind casts, your Baziers, and for Shimano's you have your the Arrow Albright. That's the one that 47 has. That's probably the one I would recommend. Nice and light. So you have for construction, and then you have the Ultegas and the Aerotechniums. It just gets too expensive after that. But yeah, that's kind of what I would recommend if you want to start that way. I know they're a little bit pricey, but it will be worth its weight in gold when you see stripers busting 60 yards out, and you're the only one that can get out there. Okay, because that's the reason why we started doing it too. Because we'll go to these places where you'll throw your conventional, just a big spool, bigger size reels on a 10-foot rod. It's not even like a surf rod, just a regular rod. And yeah, you can't get them. And then you'll watch somebody who's probably already been through that stage. He comes out with the proper gear, and he can fire a 2 ounce top water out that far, and then after that your eyes open up, and you're kind of like, if I want to do this, I'll have to go that route. So that's I hope that kind of helps you out a little bit. So for that, a lot of that gear you really can't get locally. You really have to order online. That's the only downside of it, and a lot of it's actually from Japan. A lot of the local, even Bass Pros and those other guys, they won't carry it, or if you go and ask for it, they can order it for you, but they don't have it in stock. What's the funniest moment when fishing? Funniest moment? I'll think about that. I'll get back to that one. Kyle Bracken says, I would like to know more about your photo/video gear and editing workflow. Okay, so a lot of people, maybe if you've been paying attention to our channel since we came out about 2 years ago, you'll notice that in the beginning it was just really choppy, or actually there was a lot of good editing going on, and then it kind of looks kind of staged, and the later part of the videos are kind of okay. All of a sudden they're already there, and all of a sudden fish is biting like crazy. Or in our editing table where we do the reviews, things are set up a certain way. Well, I think that's a video in itself on how to do tabletop reviews and camera angles on your boats, and what camera we use. The camera that we use is actually the camera that's filming right now. It is the Sony GW 77 something. There's a review on it on our channel. That's the one we have. It's fairly expensive. I think it was $700 when I bought it, and it has a couple qualities in it that say a GoPro can do, and we do run GoPros as well. That's the other one. And also your iPhones. iPhones actually take really good quality pictures now, so the majority of it is on that. If you see a picture on our Facebook or on our Instagram that just looks way too good, that's actually a professional quality camera that 47 does. 47 is an amateur photographer who has a really high-end, I think it's a Canon. Yeah. The body itself was like $2,000, so that's without lenses, but he has one of those. So I hope that kind of answers some of the ideas. So we have everything from a GoPro, which is just a GoPro. Everyone knows what GoPro is. It's the Black Edition. Yeah, that's what we have. I think it's a Gen 3 Black Edition. A GoPro 3 Black Edition, and then we have the Sony waterproof camera. That's the thing about this Sony camera. It was waterproof. That was the one feature we had to have. So GoPro and Sony, both waterproof. Canon's not. That's mainly just for indoor pictures and things like that. And iPhone. Okay, so those are the 4 cameras we use. The workflow, we used to be on Macs. There's a Mac, right? On a Mac, we use Final Cut. And then on a PC, which I just built, high performance gaming PC, and overclocked and everything. Okay, so on the PC we are using Premiere, and we actually have a Photoshop license, and we have the Premiere license for that. So we have the whole entire Adobe suite. So we're kind of familiar with a little bit of everything. Let's see. How about on low profile reels and round baitcast reels? I don't think we're going to be the guys to really answer that question. The only thing I can really tell you, the main thing is if you're going to make a lot of repeated casts, I'm talking every minute for 2 hours, if you're going to be, firing, power fishing, you have to go to a low profile because it's just the comfort. It's there. But I can tell you that your spools, they tend to empty out a lot faster, because when you're making a good cast, you look at your spool, it's like halfway done. On a big round one, when you make a cast, it seems like maybe only 10 to 20%'s gone. And the thing about the round ones, or at least this is kind of what I've seen, is the round ones tend to cast more consistently. You don't have to whip in them as hard to get the spool going so fast. Because you mentioned, let's say for example, a 50 or 100 size, those are made for like short casts, little things here and there, precise stuff. But if you're gonna really whip it, it's gonna backlash a lot easier on you. So, at least that's what I've seen. This is Ted Holt Jr. He says, can I use heavy largemouth rod and reel units for striped bass, and or do I need to purchase others? Heavy largemouth rods. If you're talking about a flipping rod, like flipping rod with a little bit of tip is fine. I think it'll be just fine. I've caught a lot of fish on even a 100 size reel. It's fine. The only downside is if you catch a real big one, he makes a run, you will be hoping to God he doesn't spoil you. That's the only downside. But then again, that's what makes it fun. So, and try not to put the heavy lines on it. In a battle with a striped bass, usually when you hook a bass, it's not in cover. It'll run towards open water, so you can fight them. It's a totally different world from smallmouth to striped bass, walleyes, and not walleyes, stripers, hybrids, and white bass. They tend to run towards open water. So with that in mind, if you're flipping with 70, 80 pound braid, step it down to like a 30. Or even a 20, it'll be fine. That way you get a lot more line on your reels, and you can fight them that way. So that's what I've done. I've had no problems with it. I think your major thing is just going to be distance, because when bass fishing, distance doesn't really matter much, especially fishing from shore. But the way you fish with stripers, a lot of times you want to cover water because you can't really predict where they're going to be, so you want to cover as much water as you can, and that usually means long casts. So just keep that in the back of your mind, and I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. It's not too hard. What do you think about the new pin spin fisher and long casts? That's from Salomon J. Can't pronounce his last name, but you know what? I'm not a big fan of pin. For in terms of long casting reels, I know they are, at least some of their reels are built real tough and really really good. I grew up with idolizing the pin reels, the golden, the black bodies with a gold spool. I know those are built to last, but well, at least from back in the days. But yeah, I haven't been looking at the pin reels a lot. No, maybe I should. But basically, if you're trying to cast far, from our experience from the Daiwas and the Shimanos, they tend to do the best because you look at the spool width, so that's how wide the spool is, and then also how tall the spool. That usually gives it away in terms of how well it's going to cast. So if it's like a tight spool, short spool, that's more of a boat spool, heavy loads, that type of fight. But if you're trying to reach distance, in terms of distance, you want the tallest spool you can get. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just quickly Google Daiwa Basia. It's Basia, and as soon as you type that, you'll see what I'm talking about. The spools on those, they're crazy. They're like 2.5 inches tall, like that. All the other spools might be like that. Okay, so keep that in mind if you're looking for distance. And those are more of the surf rod setups. Stripers or wipers? Which do you guys prefer? From Cash Jacobs. If you want to take a picture, stripers. If you want to fight, wipers. Best all-around rod and reel. Let's see. Honestly, if you were going to ask me best all-around rod and reel, which reel do you keep in your car? That type of question. I would have to say it's a spinning reel. Yeah, my best all-around rod and reel is actually, it's up there. You don't have to get the same brand or anything, but I'll tell you what the characteristics of it is. I do a lot of fishing where I do throw a lot of the heavier stuff sometimes, or do a double jig because we do a lot of white bass fishing, striper fishing with an OOW killer rig, and it's pushing about 3/4 ounce. So you need a rod that can actually handle that when it comes time for it. So what I do is, what I have is a St. Croix Premier 7-foot medium heavy, but it's a 2-piece. Okay, it's not a 1-piece, it's a 2-piece. So that's my best all-around rod. Okay, it's light enough and it's got a good enough backbone on it. That's what it is. I'm sure there's some Abus and other Shimano rods out there that can do it, but that's what I happen to have right now. It was actually a Christmas gift from one of my sisters. As for a reel, right now I'm rocking the Shimano Stratic still. I've had it for roughly 2 years. 1.5 to 2 years. Stratic 3000 size, and it's running 10-pound original Power Pro in red color. For some reason, red just works. So that's my all around, because I know I can get the distance. I can finesse it. I can flip jigs with it. Yeah, you can flip with a spinning rod. And the 10-pound braid, if you're patient enough, you can get just about anything out of the weeds. The harder you pull on a fish, the more it's gonna fight and do all this type of crap in the weeds. But if you hook them, as soon as you set them, and you just slowly pull them out, they usually come up. Not that big of a deal. It's not always jacking them and cranking them and throwing them in the boat, that type of stuff. Plus, it can also throw all the little stuff, like the little jerk baits, 3-inch jerk baits, X-Wraps, things like that. Yeah, it's actually pretty good for that too. Let's see. Someone asks, is it possible to go fishing with you guys? If so, can I come fishing? Due to scheduling and things like that, I would say it's not really likely, but it's not impossible. If you see us out there, just come and say hi. Well, just stand next to me, fish. I really don't care. We've actually had a lot of people do that. So, I'll tell you what, we fish a lot at OOW, Keystones, we fish Eufaula, we fish Sooner, I mean, all the local lakes, Skyotic and all that. We fished that a lot. So if you see us, come and ask us. Take a picture. Oh, somebody did. One time. What else? I think that's about it. That's it. Alright, I'm back with the funny story. I had to think about it for a while, but we haven't had any funny stories in the last, say, couple years. So I'm going to take it back to Massachusetts. I'm in Oklahoma, moved here 7 years ago, and the funniest story that I could think of, actually, yeah, the funniest story, this is way back before we even did any stripers, you know, didn't think about bass fishing. It was strictly, you know, power bait and trout derbies, okay? Power bait and trout derbies. Okay, so let me paint the picture. Back in Mass, we lived in a fairly small town, and every springtime, about 3 weeks after the snow melts, okay, there's a trout derby. It's a small pond. The pond's probably 10-acre pond. It's out in Leominster, so the guys out there from New England, they might know what I'm talking about. Forgot what the place is called, but it's like there's like a little building, and then there's like a little pathway. You walk, and then there's like a pond in the back to the left of it. And every spring there's this trout derby, and there's always like these little tags. It's called tag and trout. That's what it was. And if you get one of these tags, you'd go and redeem a prize. You know, so that's how a derby works. But anyways, we never fished the first day because we always let the little kids fish it because it's really meant for kids. You know, trouts, they stock them. I think they stock this as like 2,000 trout. And there's like 25 or something that have these tags. Okay, so the second day we actually go out, we fish, and there's a good group of, you know, guys going out. You know, guys, kids, that stuff. Remember, it was my dad, my uncle, my two uncles. Well, three uncles. I think it was 3 uncles, 47, myself, and Hybrid. And there's like another cousin that went out. So there's quite a bit of us. And I think you were limited to 2 fishing rods per person. And you know, I think we had like 5 people, so we had like 10 rods out, right? So there's this kind of path that cuts across this pond, and in this path there's like a little ditch that allows the water to flow from one body to the other body of water in case, you know, you don't want this one to flood. So it's like a little ditch that's paved, and it's about that deep. So there's like a little bit of water in there, but somebody put a little plank on there so you can walk across without getting your feet dirty or wet. And this little ditch is probably 10 foot wide, so it's not something you can easily jump over. Anyways, we're fishing, right? It's part of the derby, you know, or the after effects of the derby, and we all the power bait is out. You know, fish are mostly active right before the nightfall. So we're fishing. The bite is on. I mean, the bite is on, and if you could imagine, like, you've been to these derbies, like my fingers, kind of how they're like that. That's how the rods look like when you step back maybe 10 feet and you're looking out. You've been there, right? The rods, they're like that. And there's like a line going in every single direction, you know. But anyways, it got to the point where we knew which rod was gonna bite. Like, for some reason, I think the pack of trout just kept on swimming like this. So you can count it. This one's gonna bite, and then that 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 one's gonna bite, and then that's. Long story short, we limited it out that day. The thing is, it was this rod is where it was funny, because it got to the point where it was this rod, and then there's this couple that has like a little one of those little dogs that are it's like a little mini chihuahua, but it's like really, really furry. I think it's called a corgi or something. Anyways, they're walking their dog, and the dog is off the leash, right? So at this point, when these ladies are coming over this little ditch I'm talking about, they come over on the plank, but the little dog doesn't want to come over. So the lady has to go over and grab the dog and bring it over this ditch, right? So at that moment when she brought the dog over, this one bit, and everyone knew they had their eyes on this one. But the trick was this one was really, really close to the ditch. It's like the gaps between these rods like 4 or 5 feet. The gap between this one and this one was like 50 feet. So you could just see the rod. Like, it wasn't within grabbing distance. So there's this little dog. The lady just grabbed the dog and carried it over the ditch. Okay, so this dog didn't want anything to do with the ditch. She brings it over the ditch, she drops it on the floor, and she starts walking towards us, right? And then, Lord behold, this one starts going. It starts bending, right? And you know, every fisherman goes through that stage where the thing you want to do is just like that. You want to be over there and swing on that trout. So my uncle, he runs like 20 yards that way. And you can imagine this couple is walking this way. They're coming like this. And the little Chihuahua dog is walking with him. And the only thing I can remember is just watching him run towards his fishing pole, which is right next to the ditch. And this little dog must have thought that he was trying to catch the dog. Like, that's how it literally looked like. And I feel sorry for those folks. We said sorry to them too, but their little dog ran through the ditch. The little dog was only like this high, right? The water was about that high. And the little dog jumped through the water like 10 foot over to the other side. My uncle's still running. And this little dog, you know, is just jumping through this ditch that it didn't want to go through in the first place. Like 30 seconds ago. He gets the fish. And then the little dog is just on the other side of the ditch barking at him. And he's looking at it like, dang, what did I ever do to you? Anyways, the owners were all laughing. Everybody got a real good laugh. That was probably the most funny moment in our fishing world, if anybody wanted to know. But yeah, that was definitely the funny thing. And until this day, if you were to ask any of those guys, you know, you still remember that little dog during the trout fishing trip? Yeah, everybody still remembers. And that was I would say that was a good 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. But thanks for asking that question, though. That was definitely my funniest trip. That was real funny. And the icing on top of the cake was that day we actually did get a tag in trout. And that tag ended up being like a $25 gift certificate to a restaurant. And we went there. And at the time, you know, you being Asian, it was a $25 coupon for, it was a mom and pop shop. And I don't know, I think me and my dad went there. All we got was like 10 hot dogs or something like that. It was still pretty good. But anyways, yeah, that's my funny story.
Damn it, it's that stupid black background with a stupid red frog again. That means the video is over. But I really do like this video, so I think I might just subscribe, like, and share this video with all my friends. And don't forget to share your daily catches with us on Facebook or on Instagram.